My next guest, Reg Spiers, was a promising javelin thrower, competed at the 1962 Commonwealth Games. He travelled to London in 1964 after he didn't make the Australian Olympic team. He was on the circuit trying to qualify for the Australian Olympic team. He found himself out of money and unable to get home to Australia for his daughter's birthday. What came next was a conversation in a pub, an audacious plan. I guess that's how they all start to some degree. A life on the run, and now a best-selling book, Out of the Box, The Highs and Lows of a Champion Smuggler. It's written by Julie and Marcus McSorley, who are the wife and son of the man who helped Reg Spiers, and I never thought I'd say this sentence, build a box that would transport him halfway across the world. Reg, good afternoon to you.
How you doing, Will?
I'm well. Thanks for coming in. And we've also got Julie McSorley on the phone. G'day, Julie.
Good morning from Spain.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you getting up to talk to us as well. Julie, I'll speak to you in a moment about where you first learned about Reg and his story. But Reg, you're an Adelaide guy originally.
Yeah, I'm born and raised.
Where were you born?
Down at Semaphore, a little Fiveaa hospital.
And
I lived 200 metres from where I was born.
So you always lived out north that way?
Always, yeah.
What point did you start realising you could throw pretty well?
Oh, 15 or 16, I did sport at school, of course, and I realised I wasn't bad at it, so I had a crack at it. You had to specialise in an event, so I did the javelin. I like to throw, and that's what I did.
So it was only 14, 15, because by 16, 17, you were you're in the calculations for national championships and things.
No. I was only a junior then. I won the title in 1967.
Right.
The Australian Championship. I was 25, I think. It took me 10 years to get there. And I won it again in 1977, 10 years apart. But when I was young, sport drove me. That's what it was all about.
I think, what was it, 74 odd metres when you won the championship?
70, yeah, something like that. My best was about 78 something.
And now, from my memory, you were throwing about 69 in 1964.
Oh, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Whatever it was, it wasn't quite on. It didn't quite get you on the Australian Olympic team.
No, I qualified for the team, but I got injured.
Right.
And we're behind because we're in the southern hemisphere. We're behind in the athletic world. So I got a job on a boat to go to England, and because the season was starting there, I thought if I could see a doctor there perhaps and get fixed up and carry on, but it didn't work out that way.
It didn't work out?
No.
Was it because you couldn't get right, or you were out of form?
No, I couldn't get right.
Yeah.
No, and it wasn't until I came back. It took me 2 years to get it right, because nobody knew anything about sports medicine in those days.
Yeah.
And I found a doctor eventually here, Dr. Barber in North Terrace, and he got it right. And 3 months after he did the operation, I was back into it, so I lost a couple of years.
That said, you were over there hoping to qualify for the team.
Yes, I was.
You'd been on the circuit.
I tried to compete over there, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So what happens then? I mean, this is 1964. It's not like you're travelling around the world living on the riches of being a javelin thrower.
No.
Presumably you had to work and things
I had to
as
work.
well.
I had to get a job as a workaway on the boat to get over there to begin with.
Yeah.
And, of course, when I got there, I never had... In those days, you never had any money. Nobody had any money.
Yeah.
And but I worked at the airport, and I figured I saw something that might work. Get home quickly.
Well, probably a good opportunity to introduce Julie McSorley, the author of this wonderful book. G'day, Julie.
Good day.
Julie, when did you first become or know about Reg?
Well, let me just say first, Will, and good morning here. It's pretty early. Let me first say that, unbelievably, I'm also an Aussie, although I don't sound like it, and I was also born in Adelaide.
Is that right? Well, this is a homegrown story.
Julie, baby!
Hi, Reg.
You look great. How are you?
Really good, Sam.
Good girl.
Really good. Lovely to hear your voice.
Yeah, me too.
Now,
Well, I'll tell you, I first heard about the story in 1970 when I was in England and first met my husband, John McSorley, who is the box maker extraordinaire.
that was 6 years after the successful journey. Successful being, I guess, a matter of some review. Reg, when did you first meet John?
I met Johnny in 1962 in the Perth Commonwealth Games, and we were just struck it off straight away. We became great friends.
So you've tried to qualify. It hasn't worked out for you. You don't have a buck to your name. You wanted to get back to Australia. Was it, I read, for your daughter's birthday?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. Yeah. And so you go to the pub where all great plans are hatched.
Naturally.
Who suggested it?
Well, I laid it on Johnny, and immediately he thought I was completely crazy.
Because having worked at the airport,
yes,
you'd seen how cargo going back and forth.
I worked in the export cargo section of Air France, and so I had an idea of what was going on. I saw animals coming through the airport, and I figured, if the animals can do it, I can do it. So I then looked up the specifications for the biggest piece of freight you could put on a jet aircraft in those days, and it was 5 feet by 2.5 feet by 3 feet. Johnny built it after I convinced him I was prepared to do it. He built it, I got in it, and off we went.
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary to think. How much did that cost? How much cheaper is it to ship something as big a piece of freight as you could rather than jump in it?
The cost was making the box, because I sent the bloody thing COD. So, yeah.
That was right.
I'm basically a crook, you know, what can I say?
So you built the box.
Built the box.
How does this happen? I get the building part, but what happens to actually put a human being in a box and send them halfway around the world? What's the next stage?
Well, we built the box, and the formalities involved were I got dressed up in a suit, went down to the cargo par of BOAC in those days, said I want to send a box to Australia. I said, no problem. COD, no problem. Sign here. I signed. Bring the box in. Bring it in, and it'll sit there 24 hours before the plane goes off. So the box is built. Johnny said, there it is. He did it just right. Got in the bloody thing, and off you go.
What is that? How long does that journey take?
It's 63 hours I was in the thing.
63?
I got out once for about 10 minutes, but most of the time I just sat in the bloody thing.
What's the storage area of a plane like? I imagine it's not built for comfort, is it? I would have thought it's very cool.
No, don't forget, it's 5 feet long, so I could sort of sit up, or I could crunch my legs up and lie down a bit. But I got out once to stretch my legs between London and Paris. But other than that, I just sat in the bloody thing.
Did you sleep?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it's pitch black.
Yeah.
So I slept for most of the way.
Were you aware of, or was there any suspicion raised at any point in time?
There was only one time when I thought I might have brought myself undone. That was between London and Paris. I got out of the box and peed into a can.
Right.
And while stretching my legs, I put the can on top of the box. And then I felt the plane going down, and I didn't panic, but I thought I'd better get back in this bloody thing. Got in, and sitting there waiting for things to happen, and then, wait a minute, I've left the bloody can on top of the box. I didn't get very far. I'm gone, for sure. So it landed, and the holder opened, and these French guys got on board, and I could tell they weren't happy when they come across this can.
You wouldn't be.
No, they weren't happy. They thought the pommies did it. And I'm waiting for the knock on the box and say, get out of there. Nothing happened. So I just sat there and wrote it out.
And you presumably then, the same plane, or do they transport you?
Same plane till we got to Mumbai.
Yeah.
And then they took me off the plane, left me on the tarmac for a while. It was very hot. And again, I didn't know how long I'd be able to sustain this. But I held it out for as long as I could. And then they took me and put me on another plane, and off I went again.
Julie, you said you first heard the story in 1970. I probably heard it, I don't know, going back a couple of months. I think I heard Reg talking about it on a TV program somewhere. Julie, I thought this can't be true. This must be rubbish. This is a con to write a book. What did you believe it straight away?
Well, you certainly couldn't make it up, that's for sure. And my husband isn't prone to making things up either, but I must admit, I sort of thought he might have got it slightly wrong. Or,
Come on, Julie.
and friends really, couldn't believe it. It's been a family story in our house for so long. But the thing that surprised me and had continued to surprise me was that nobody had ever written the book, because there are certainly lots of well-known, interesting books about true stories that are a lot less dramatic and exciting than Reg's story. So it was sort of put on hold for a long time because life happens, and writing a book is quite a time-consuming thing. But eventually, my son Marcus and I decided that we both had the stomach for it. We knew it would take a lot of hard work, and here we are.
Julie, thank you. I appreciate your take on the story, and it is a fascinating book. Reg, the story, though, for you doesn't end with getting out of the box, although I'm fascinated to know, before we get to that, how did you get out?
Well, Johnny built it
when you got here.
Well, Johnny built it so I could get out either end. It had latches on it, so
when you turn up in Perth, what happens?
When I turn up in Perth, I get out of the bloody thing.
And you just walked out of
Virtually walked out. I cut a hole in the wall, walked out.
And that was it?
That was it.
No cash on delivery, presumably. No. The book, and I've got it here, the title of which suggests there's more to the story. There's more to your story, clearly, than simply smuggling yourself in a box. That's the bit that people are interested in talking about, clearly. Yes. But that wasn't the end of smuggling.
No, that wasn't. My athletic time came to an end, and in those days, you never made money out of athletics. So I've sort of found myself in a hole. I had no money. I was 39 years old, but I already knew about. I smoke weed and love it, and have done so for 45 years. I'm only 27, though.
Yeah, right.
So I got into that. I started smuggling hashish.
Yeah.
And that took me to places I never knew existed.
At one stage, you faced a charge to be executed in Sri Lanka. I want to ask you about that. Do you have time to stick around after the break?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Reg Spiers in the studio with me. He's the subject of this fascinating book. It's called Out of the Box, The Highs and Lows of a Champion Smuggler. We'll talk to him about that part of his life and that part of the story. I'm joined in the studio by Reg Spiers, who is the subject of the book Out of the Box, The Highs and Lows of a Champion Smuggler. And on the line, all the way from Spain, is Julie McSorley, who is one of the authors of the book. We're talking a bit about Reg's story, and if you're just tuning in, he started out as a champion javelin thrower in Australia, competed at a Commonwealth Games, was trying to get to an Olympic Games, but injury curtailed that, went to the UK to try and throw a qualification distance. It didn't work out. And a large part of the book is concerned with his posting. I guess it's postage still. Posting himself back to Australia.
Piece of freight.
In a box. Freight. There you go, Reg. That's probably more accurate. It's an incredible story. It's quite extraordinary. But there's more to the book than just that part, because in 1980, Reg was charged with conspiracy to import cocaine and cannabis resin, and then you went on the run, Reg. Why'd you do that?
I didn't want to go to jail.
That's the long and short of it. But that's a big. You're making one hell of a decision when you decide to do that.
Well, I was in love, and I had a woman, and we didn't want to be parted, so we took off. Simple as that.
How did you get out? And I know at the time a lot of people asked the same question of the Australian government.
How did I get out? Well, strangely, I organised a couple of passports. I did it myself. I got an office down here in Bank Street, got the phones all hooked up, had everything lined up for what the passport outfit would want. If they applied, we had everything ready here to answer. So they didn't. So I got 3 passports. I got the passports in different names. I had to sign twice a day, every day, at the Federal Police on Green Hill Road. So it was a bit tight to get out, but I managed to make myself look different and get on a plane, and eventually got to India.
You got to India?
Yeah.
I read a headline, found on the internet, from the LA Times, June 3, 1987. Ex-Australian javelin champion sentenced to death on drug charges in Sri Lanka. You got to India? Sri Lanka's fairly nearby.
Pardon me, yeah. Well, eventually I was going through Sri Lanka with I had a load of drugs, and I got caught. And I didn't know it at the time, but the penalty was, if you had more than 2 grams of heroin, it was a mandatory death sentence. So I pleaded not guilty all the way through, thankfully, and I got the death sentence, but at the same time, while this was happening, I had other information that came out in the trial, and I knew I was going to beat it in the appeal.
Yeah.
that was a nitwit could work it out. But I knew I would beat it. So when I got the death sentence, which is a strange experience to stand in the box there and the carrying on when they do this, but I wasn't particularly perturbed because I knew I'd beat it. I just knew. And I did.
How did you know?
Well, all the documentation that came in this, in the trial, the particular part was the government analyst's report.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're bloody idiots. They said I had 600 grams of heroin. I didn't have 600 grams of heroin. There was 1.1 kilos of heroin there. So they knocked off half of it. That's what happened. And once I got a good lawyer and told him the truth, he said, oh, well, this is no problem because the continuity of the evidence broke down.
Mm.
The evidence is at Katanayake Airport in Colombo, and it's only got to go 26 miles to the government analyst, but it took about 3 months to get there. And as if the continuity of the evidence broke down, because at some point they didn't know who the hell had it. So once this was shown in court, they just go home.
Were you ever concerned? I mean, you still got to the sentencing stage at least once. You might have been confident on appeal, but that must be one hell of a thing for someone to say, you are sentenced to death.
Yeah, I thought about it at the time, but hey, I'm Australian. Come on. I knew I was going to beat it. Somehow or other I'd get out of it. I was always looking for a way to try and escape too, of course. I'd do anything. But once the trial had been finished and I was sentenced, I knew I'd beat it. Because there it is, in black and white. It's their evidence, not my evidence, and it was all wrong.
Julie, did you always want to write this part of the story as well?
Oh yes, it's very much part of the whole story. Mm. I mean, people say that the box episode in itself is amazing. Mm. But when you get somebody that's sentenced to death as a Frenchman, that's equally as amazing, and it's all of the story in between. And when people ask, what is the book about, it's actually a love story as well. It's the best modern day Bonnie and Clyde love story that you're ever going to read, and it's all true. And I think that really captured our imaginations, and we just thought it was too good not to pen it, basically. Mm.
Two Adelaide people and one hell of a book. Julie McSorley, really appreciate you holding on the line and speaking to us. And Reg, thanks for coming in, mate.
My pleasure.
My pleasure too.
The book is called Out of the Box, The Highs and Lows of a Champion Smuggler.